Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. It is a grateful for us to gather here in the second session of Kraft Sustainability webinar today. For today's session, we are going to talk on an interesting topic of craft preservation and protection. It is with great pleasure that I welcome all the panelists and also our moderator, Encik Noorizal bin Ramli. But before we proceed, I would like to share on his background and 20 years working experience. From year 2001 until 2005, he was a project staff in research and development at headquarters Jalan Konde. Year 2005 until 2015, he was a head unit operator at National Kraft Institute. By the year of 2015 until 2016, he was a manager of Temeluk Kraft Incubation Center, Pahang. Year 2017 until June 2021, he's back to National Kraft Institute as a head unit operator. And since July 2021, he is a head center of excellence unit at National Kraft Institute. Now, moving along to our session, please welcome Mr. Noorizal bin Ramli as moderator of this webinar.
All right, thank you, Nabila, for that introduction. So first of all, I would like to say Assalamualaikum and a very good day to all attendees who are watching today's IKN webinar in conjunction with Kraft Tangan Malaysia Virtual National Kraft Day 2021. So first of all, I would like to say thank you to all our panelists here. Selamat datang and selamat sejahtera. So my name is Noorizal bin Ramli. I'm going to be the moderator for today, and I'm from National Kraft Institute. So basically today's webinar is going to revolve around the craft sustainability as its main theme. And knowledge will be presented by our experts of different fields here today. So the objective of the webinar today is as a platform for knowledge sharing in ensuring the continuation and preservation of national craft as a whole. But hopefully this webinar and of all other sessions that we have and I will be having on a few days, it will be as a networking and opportunities for attendees to gain views, ideas and knowledge related to the craft industry or craft community. Whether you are students or researchers and art and craft activists and enthusiasts. So hopefully you will gain something at the end of the sessions. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our wonderful speakers for today. And first, we have Dr. Rajabi Abdul Razak, Associate Professor of Department of Applied Arts and Design, Kuliah of Architecture, Environmental Design, International Islamic University Malaysia. Second, we have Florence Lambert, Heads of Craft Industries, British Council Malaysia. And last but not least, we have Dr. Zainal Abidin, Assistant Professor, Department of Applied Arts and Design, Kuliah of Architecture, Environmental Design, International Islamic University of Malaysia. So before starting, I would like to call upon each of our panelists here to do a brief introduction as a housewarming acquaintance. So I'm going to start with Dr. Rajabi first, just a brief introduction of what you do, what your experience to share with us, our attendees. All right, dipersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, Encik Noorizal Ramli, for the beautiful introductions. Just to give some corrections that I'm not associate professor. So
all right, okay, it's my mistake.
Anyway, just to introduce myself, I'm Dr. Rajabi Abdul Razak from the Department of Applied Arts and Design, Kuliah of Architecture and Environmental Design, International Islamic University Malaysia. And before joining the academic field, I'm also working with the museum. I had experience before working with the museums and also in the Department of Conservation. So basically my specialization is conservations, specifically in textile conservation. Along the way, I think I've been involved with academics since 2006 as the part-time lecturer in International Islamic University Malaysia. So I've been with IIUM since 2006 as their part-timers, and Alhamdulillah get the scholarship to pursue my PhD and become the academic lecturer in the department. And basically my involvement in the department as the conservations, we had this experience engaged with the conservations professions, all right, and the students has been taught on the, of course, the engagement with the committee on how we want to preserve the collections, the exposures of the knowledge in conservation. So I think we are the first university that offer this course, and it's been honored to be part of the teaching team in order to ensure that we contribute something to the nation. I also involved with several teaching international teaching courses with ICROM, for instance, one of the professional bodies, and had a lot of experiences and networking around with my friends around the globe, because I think in conservation we really need networking in order for us to establish our knowledge and also experiences. So I think that's all about me. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Rajabi, for the introduction. Second, I'm going to call upon Florence Lambert to do an introduction.
Thank you, Noorizal. Good morning, everybody. And I just want to express my gratitude and honor to be part of this panel. Kraft is a very important topic to the British Council. So just to give you a little bit of introduction about myself. So my name is Florence Lambert. I am actually French and I work for the British Council, and I've lived in Malaysia for 30 years now. I am the head of arts and creative industries at the British Council. So what that means is that I'm basically leading on programs to foster connections, collaboration, exchange of knowledge between Malaysian art sector and the UK art sector. So in the past 3 years that I've joined the British Council, we've specialized, or we've focused on 2 areas. One is we had a big project on creative hubs for good. So a creative hub is a collective of artists that come together to produce, to share, and to consume art and talk and be inspired about art. And we wanted through this program to show how creative hubs in Malaysia can play a very important role and create more awareness around creative hubs in Malaysia and map them and basically sort of give a better understanding of this whole ecosystem in Malaysia. And the second program that we've been working very hard on was Crafting Future. And this program is actually a regional, global program in the British Council. And it's all about empowering women and girls, preserving cultural heritage, and fostering economic and social inclusion in the countries where we run these programs. But in Malaysia, we took a slightly different route, and perhaps we can talk about this later today. So I think that will be all for my introduction. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Florence. Of all the time that I've known you, I never thought you were French. So this is first time that I know. I thought you always learned from the British or from Britain. So that's very interesting. So last but not least, I'm going to call Dr. Norzalifa to do a brief introduction of herself. Silakan.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning, everyone. I am honored to be invited as part of the speaker and panelists today. Having to just receive the news of my deceased sister just a few days ago. So hopefully, inshallah, I think we can do the sharing later. But my background is I studied architecture in England, and I've been practicing as architect before I joined IIUM, International Islamic University Malaysia. So when I'm involved with AAD, Applied Arts and Design Department, I've been assigned to join the majoring of interior design. So at the same time, while teaching, we are also doing some research, and we help the students, as well as, of course, we are linking with the industries in order to enhance the knowledge as well as upskilling for the undergraduate and postgraduate. So I have designed a mosque which are going towards sustainability. It's a Green Building Index Gold Award, and Alhamdulillah, it's Masjid Arada Masara. And by having that, I think one of my hobbies is actually to do enhancement with the community of the indigenous people in Malaysia, which is orang Asli, and we have formed a jungle school initiative. Like IIUM have a flagship project in helping the orang Asli. So what we do in jungle school is actually we are helping the community to enhance their cultural heritage. So I think later on I will be sharing that with, I think during my session of input sharing. I think having to work in the industry, it helps me a lot to do good networking, and I think we can further enhance and move forward in terms of creating a lot more innovation in order to assist the indigenous people around the world to enhance their cultural heritage, because they have their sets of traditional environmental knowledge that I think they love to share to the public. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Norzalifa. I mean, this is wonderful. We have panels from different fields. I mean, we have Dr. Rajabi with preserving products, and then Dr. Norzalifa working with the indigenous people and with the community. And we have Florence working with the youngsters and trying to create sustainable future in terms of craft. So I'm looking forward to see how this at the end is going to come. But without further ado, I'm going to start with Dr. Rajabi to start her presentations on preservation and conservation of products, craft products. Thank you, Dr. Rajabi. Dipersilakan.
Thank you so much. Can you see my
screen? Yeah, the slide is there.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, again, Assalamualaikum. Thank you so much, Mr. Noorizal and my fellow speakers, Ms. Florence, Lambert, and Assistant Professor Dr. Zainal and Abidin. Well, I think first of all, I would like to thank Vhkk of Pemeliharaan Kraf Malaysia for inviting me for this session. I think being honored to be here today to share some knowledge and also experience in conservation. And I think we'll be talking on the preservation and conservation of craft object. I think this presentation will be more on how we want to preserve the collections. Maybe they will be beneficial for the professional as well as for the personal collector. So we know that in Malaysia we have a lot of craft product, and we do also have a lot of collector who are having these unique collections. Some of the product might not available, and we could say that some of the craft work is no longer there. So we have to get some knowledge on how we want to preserve, because in our situation, especially in our climate situations, we have lots of, there are agents that will be deteriorate our collection. So my session will be more discussing from the what are the factors actually contribute for the degradations of the collection, and how it's actually the preventive measure can be done in order for us to preserve and also sustain our collection. So just again, from the Department of Applied Arts and Design, IIUM. Okay. All right, so I just would like to start with the introductions about craft. So I think this being, everybody know what is craft is all about, but of course the craft is an intangible objects that we are, produced by the craftsmen manually, or they being based on their creative abilities, all right? And of course the collection basically have been produced handmade, and it was these expressions of the creativity. and it's an arts, trade, and occupational requirement special skill, especially the manual skill that could be reproduced or skillful way at a mass scale. So when we look at the collections of the our craft product, basically there's a lots of material involved. All right, so we do have these fiber arts, we do have the textile collections, we have the ceramic, the stone object, or maybe the beads. There are lots of material and properties involved in the productions of the product. So I would say that this object has the component of organic and inorganic base. And for your information, that both material basically has been exposed a lot, and without a proper preventive measure, there will be damage and also degrades. So I think it's very important, perhaps for the craftsman to understand in terms of the material component or the compositions of the material, and of course it's involved along the process, the productions, and how we want to preserve the collection from the manufacturing process until the end. So once we have having the collection, so how we are going to taking care of this collection, because we know that when we said the handmade things, of course, is involved with the natural. You know, the material is from the natural base. It's an organic base, something that will be as a living life material that will be easily to be degraded. So I've been on it working. I mean, we are in Malaysia, we have lots of craft product, and I do believe that everybody has their own collections, perhaps inherited from the from our from the grandmothers to inherited to us, the young generation. So of course, again, it's very important. We have to ensure that our young generation also will be having opportunity to see the beauty of the collections. All right, so we know that the manufacturing or the productions of the craft product was since ancient period. The prehistoric humans or people also have come up with these craft products since ancient time, whereby they are using whatever that's surrounding them in order for them to produce products such as these necklaces, or maybe the jewelry or the kitchen utensils that can be utilized and can be used for the daily use. And of course, when we talk about this accessory, one of the examples that I'm giving here, we can see the difference or how the developments or the innovations by creating this craft product, maybe from the plain without any finishing, until how they have come up with a very beautiful collections that can be wear and can be beneficial for them. So it was along the way. So this is part of the history that we know until today. We are still producing the same thing, but of course with some elements of the developments of the craft product itself, from the design until the establishment of the materials from the natural base and also the synthetic base. So based on this, we know that whatever that available, for instance, using the beads and the seashell and other materials can be used, because this was there since earlier, from the early time that we have all this material. So another collections, one of it is we have these ceramic products. So we know one of the inorganic based material that we found in during the human-made ceramic. Okay, the archaeologists found this back to 24 BC and 44,000 BC, and then it was made from the animal fat and bones meat. So this is a kind of the inventions that we know being utilized wherever that they have surrounding, that they can be utilized and produce a product. So this is the beauty that we can see. People, from the historic period until today, they have, even though they don't have any basic knowledge, or was not, it was being formally during the educations, but somehow they know about the materials and also the properties of the material that they can utilize and they can use in order to produce a product. So, and of course, nowadays we can see the new inventions of the product. I listed here different types of materials, of course, and we can see in terms of the design, in terms of the finishing, in terms of the size of the product itself, and then the beauty of the collections that we have. And they have been innovated from a very simple product and become, enhance the beauty and also the developments of the designs of this product that can be that we can see today. So this is the important thing that we have to ensure. We have to ensure that this object or the collection will be sustained until, for another forever actually. So, but we know that the basic component or the characteristic of this material is also very important for us to understand about the how we want to preserve and how we want to sustain the collection from damage. So this is where the conservation come across. So when we have all this collection, this beautiful collection, so we have to ensure that how we are supposed to do, in order for us to preserve the collections, and we have to understand what is the preventive conservation. And I just come up with this definition that was come up with the professional bodies, the International Committee for Conservation, or the of International Council of Museum, ICOMCC, that they mentioned that the preventive conservation is defined as all measures and action aimed at avoiding and minimizing future deteriorations or loss. So they are carried out within the context or on surrounding of each item, but more often a group of items, whatever their age and condition. These measures and action are indirect. They do not interfere with the material structures of the items. They do not modify the appearance. So basically, when we talk about the preventive measure, we have to ensure that we are control the environmental control is very important. We have to keep our collection in a proper manner. We have to follow the way how the right way in order for us to keep our collection and to preserve our collection. So I will discuss further about this in my slide. So of course, it's also involved on, because I think in conservation it's better for us to preserve than cure. So we have to make sure that object should be in a good condition and try to avoid to do any restoration work later on. And as I mentioned that most of our, we know that the craft products have been divided into two types of sources, which is organic and inorganic base. So technically, the organic is the material that has a combinations of the elements of carbon and hydrogen. So it does have a carbon chain. And of course, it's derived from the substance that were once living. And this is where I think most of our craft product is made from the organic based material. So it's very, very crucial that we have to ensure that the collection will be preserved, because we know it's a living products, the component of these materials. And the inorganic materials basically is those that were never animate. It tends to be crystalline. Rather than fibrous in nature, and basically is more stable. The collection from the inorganic, for instance, that we have ceramic, metal, and stone, and most of the pigments is a synthetic based material. So this is under the category of inorganic based material. So when we talk about the organic based material, the material basically is from the animals and also plant based. So I just listed here what are the category of the animal based and also the plant based. We know that the animals such as the wool, silks, leather, feather, fur, horn, shell, bone, and ivory. While for the plant based is the wood, basketry, the cotton, and linen. This is under the category of plant. So we know our product has been made, for instance, the textile. So we have the collection from the organic base and also the plant base. And most of the collection is actually from the organic based material. Perhaps we do have the inorganic combinations of the material because based on the track, for instance, we have the synthetic track. And then we have also the colorants that's made from the natural base, the natural dye, or maybe we have also the synthetic dye. Same goes to other collection. For instance, we have all these Mengkuang collections, this also be made from the natural, but maybe during the manufacturing, they also have some, for the finishing part, they have the synthetic application on it. So it's very important to ensure that the process of the manufacturing, as I mentioned earlier, that we have to have that kind of knowledge, because I do believe that this session will be also viewed by our craftsmen. So I think it's very important for them to know the properties of the material, and then what are the precautions that they can take in order to preserve their collection from destroy, or will be, long last for the collector and also for those who are purchasing their collection. So we, of course, we want to look at the quality of the product that they will produce, and the involvement of the manufacturing understanding of the material also is very important, so that we will be able to produce a high quality product. So when we talk about the inorganic based material, as I mentioned, that it's not made of carbon chain, and the origin basically is the mineral base. Okay, so we have the mineral and rocks, for instance, stone, fossil, mineral specimen, metals, ceramic, and glass. So we're giving here some of the example on the metal collections. So we do have under the metal, the brass collection, we have the copper collection, we have such other different types of metal. And of course, the combination, the metal alloy is part of the compositions. And even though it's more stable, but it will slowly deteriorate. So it's also very important that we have to ensure this collection, especially for the inorganic based material, that will place in the right way, the way how we control the environment, whether for the professional, if you have a collection, whether in the storage or you have in the showcases, for the exhibition. And I do believe that we have also our craftsmen and also the collector who will keep their collection, maybe in the cupboard or maybe in their specific shelf. So we have to ensure that we must understand what are the factors that will degrade our collection, just to ensure that will be, the new generation also will be appreciate whatever that we have and whatever that we collect. So when we talk about the preservation, so from the left side is actually the appearance. There are three important components that I will highlight here on the appearance, on the structural integrity, and also the composition. So what we have seen here is actually on the left side, the beauty of the collection. So it's still in a good condition, whereby we can see the beauty in terms of the designs of the original look of the collection, whereby on the right side is actually the object has been damaged because it means deteriorate due to the agent factors, the agent of deteriorations that contribute for the defect and also deteriorations of the collection. Even though I did mention just now that the inorganic based material is actually more stable collection, but due to this high humidity that will be also slowly degrades, you will find the rusted and also the corrosion on the objects. And of course, there are two types of the corrosion that also going to be a good corrosion as a protecting layer, but there also will be degrades and also will penetrate and fragile. It will be make the objects fragile and destroy the whole component and compositions of the collection. And another issue when we have the collection is about the physical force. It's about the handling, how you handle the collection, on how you actually, this is one of the factors due to the mishandling that will be our ceramic product broken. So what we are supposed to do, because this is the the value of the collection, so we have to preserve rather than we have to throw it out, the collections, even though it's been broken. So this is physical force, one of the factors that might destroy our collection. It's not because of the environmental factor, it's not because of the natural factor, but because of the human factor that also make the collection being destroyed. Another sample is in terms of the composition, we will see that it's totally lost. We can't really see the beauty of the design. So when you have this kind of collection, basically you have to do, involve with the scientific instrument in order for you to scan, to see the underneath what are the components. Perhaps do they have any designs, or the pattern in this collection. So these are the three samples that I would like to share on how actually, if we didn't care of the preservation, or we didn't take care of the the important things to sustain the collection, actually this is what will happen. So of course we don't want these things happen to our collection, rather in the museums or in the personal collections. So we have to ensure that we should take a precaution, the preventive measure, in order for us to preserve it. So this is the sample on how actually the process of the degradations. So of course we have to know what are the causes of the changes. All right, so it's based on, because of the agents of deterioration. What are the agents of deterioration that will be degrades or deteriorate our objects? And then of course, because the exposure and also the vulnerability, okay, will be make the changes of the component, and also the change of the physical look of the collection, and of course they will lose of their value. So this is part of the not only the aesthetic value but also the value of the collection. And we can see that under the microscopic examination, the breakage of the fiber, so this is because of the object is already brittle and being break the fiber. And of course, due to these agents of deteriorations that lead for this effect on our collection. So this is how actually, when it was exposed for a long period, without a proper monitoring, this will be happen to the collection. So of course, we would like to avoid this thing will be happen. So we have to take our precautions. We have to ensure that we have to follow the code and ethic when we handling the collections. And even though this our own collection, so we have to know at least a basic. I do believe that of course, when we're talking about the professional field, we do have a proper training and also exposure, the knowledge that we're sharing during the training and so on how we want to taking care of the collection. But we talk about the individual who has this passion of the collections. Of course, they might not have basic knowledge on how we want to ensure the collection will be preserved. But of course, especially for the Malay folk, I think our Malay people are very very smart. I would say that, because my research basically is involved on the traditional way, on how they preserve the collections, on how they use the material in the productions of the, for instance, I'm also working or doing research in ink production, the traditional way, on how they use the natural sources in order for this, in order to produce ink and also the dyes. And of course, for this, as a preventive, I also have, I read, and also lots of research that have been done on how they preserve the collection using the traditional way, by using the natural plant, for instance, that we have the lemongrass or pandan leaf, just to preserve our collection. As part that the component of these has the pesticide, okay, so naturally has this pesticide. So we have to ensure that we are using these materials to preserve, just to avoid from the insect attack, and also other agent that will be attract to our collections. So this has been 10 of the agents of deteriorations that I mentioned when we talk about the monitoring, the environmental monitoring. So these are the agents that will, the agents of deterioration that contribute for the degradations, which is the physical force, dissociations, incorrect relative humidity, incorrect temperature because of the light and UV. pollutions, pests, water, fire, and criminal. So this is the biggest enemy actually to our collection that we have to ensure that we try to avoid. There are some cases we can't avoid because we have to aware that we are in this tropical climate. So with the high humidity and also high, the temperature fluctuate currently that we have this kind of issue. Of course, it will also affect our collection. Like NUV, for instance, most of the collection, especially in the galleries or in the display area, that will be exposed to this the exposure of light. That's why we have to ensure that when we display our collection, we have to make sure that we are using the proper light with the filter. Of course, it's not directly exposed to the collection, and we have to also ensure that we have to always do a close monitoring on the collection wherever that we display, or even in the storage room. Also, we have to also taking care and always do a periodic monitoring to ensure that the collection is in a good safe. And of course, when we talk about the pollution, it's one of another issue because you know, the pollution is everywhere, and it's accumulations of the dust and dirts that will be also contribute for the fungus grow. And we have to know that the fungus growth is not only because of the incorrect relative humidity, because of the high humidity, but also because of the accumulations of the dust and also dirt, which is due to because of the pollution, will be also contribute for the damage of the collection. So these are the agents that we might think is not giving effect to the collection, but it's actually there are. The water, for instance, of course, we can't avoid any natural disaster, okay, flooding, or maybe because of the leaking and so on. So this is the factor directly or indirectly will be affect our collections. So fire is part of it because of the it's a disaster. We never know what will happen. So it's very important for us to ensure that it should be in the keep safe in a proper way on how we want to prevent and also to avoid this thing happen, and at least to keep safe our collection. And another issue on the criminals. So this thing also we have to can't really avoid this thing happen. But of course, for the museum collection, I do believe that they insure the collection. But still, when it's been stolen or destroy the value, you know, you can't never replace the same object as origin. Okay, so it's very important for us to take proper precautions to avoid this thing happen. And the physical force also one of the, as mentioned just now, this is because the human, so it's not because of the natural, you know, factor, but this is because of human. Even though sometimes we as the, those who are taking care, I would say that conservator, I do believe that all conservators are very professional the way how they work. They know how to handle the collection. And of course, accident happen anywhere, you know, it's happened. So that's why it's very important for us to ensure that we plan our work, you know, the way how you want to handle the collection from one place to another place. We have to ensure that the route is clear, and we have to follow the ethic in conservation, the proper code and ethic in conservation, in order for us to avoid this thing happen. And the other factors also, I think the biggest, the pests everywhere, you know, whether at home or you are in the museums or galleries or any places that you might think that you already have this precaution, but you can't avoid these pests because you know, the sources is there. Even the collection, also the sources for these insect to attract of the collection. So we have sometimes this is the thing that we cannot avoid. But if you have you know, proper, you follow the procedures, and of course we can avoid, and we can at least to safeguard of our collection. Even though we have these 10 agents of durations, I have based on my you know, these are the 5 that can be listed, the biggest enemy and also always attack our heritage collection. The pests, like and you also UV, the pollution, incorrect relative humidity, as well as the incorrect temperature. So these are the 5 things that I think the agents always attack and become that we can't avoid, but somehow it will really affect our collection. So when we go for the first, the pests, this is from some of the sample that we have in our collections, or that we found the effects of the pests. And of course, their causes and what the effects actually can be seen on the collection. Of course, the causes because of the irregular maintenance. You have, this is the factor, maybe if you have the collection and then you just leave it for earlier without looking at the collection. So once you open it and then you will realize that, oh, this thing happened, it's already damaged the collection. And we can see the effect because of the physical damage. Obviously, we can see the physical damage on the collections. We can see how, the leaf of the shell of this because of the pest. And of course, we lost of this material. I do also involve with some of the collections, that totally destroy, and also we have it's very fragile, so it's kind of sorry to the collection because we can't do much. And of course the integrity and also the beauty of the collection is not being destroyed. And sometimes it's when we replace or we do the restoration work, but we could get the original look of the collections. And of course when we do the conservation work, basically we'll be using either the exact material, or we're going to use the substitute material to replace the original material. And most of the material that we use, of course, can be the original one or the synthetic, in order for us to prolong the age of the collection. So what we can do in order for us to do the preventive measure that we can prevent, of course, I'm just giving here the trap that we can place, in a certain area of at the area of our working place or the exhibition area or at home, just to get to know what kind of pests that always that's around us. And of course, the most important thing that we have the periodic monitoring, and then we can place all these traps at the edges area, like at the wall or near to door and in corners or under the furniture, or anywhere that you think that will be suitable for you to place the trappers. And of course, we have to replace, we have to do the monitoring to check on it. And I think this is very crucial because we have to ensure what are the precautions that we can take when we know what kind of insect that always attack our collection. So same goes to if for the collection, the collector, that we know we can't avoid for cockroaches. This is one of the insect that always found everywhere, because it's as I said, they have the sources for them to attract the collections. And the naturally that we have also the beetles and other insects that will be one of the that will always attract or attack this collection. So when we talk about the storage, one of the important things that we have to highlight, this is the proper way. When we talk about the professional, of course, they know how to store the collection. It should be one of the examples that I'm giving here is the textile. So try to avoid fold your collections. Your textile, you have to roll it. That's the best way how you want to keep the collection safe, because when you fold, basically you will break the fiber. So slowly it will get the effect of the breakage of the structure. And of course, we can use the acid-free paper. One of the material that we've used, this is the standard that we use in the museums or the conservations. All materials should be acid-free materials, and that we have to also put in the bottom of the storage, and also, or you have to roll it with this paper in order for you to to avoid any to avoid any exposure to humidity and or other agents of deterioration that might affect this collection. Of course, we have to also place this acid paper, because we can also trace is there any insect activity or any other activities happen in our storage room. And of course, we have to go.
Rajabi, we have to speed up the presentations because we have another 2 more panels.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Right, sorry. Okay, so basically this is the preventive for the storage. You have to go through the cleaning, regular vacuum cleaning, and also you have to use the storage unit display boxes secondary against the insect invasion. So this is how actually we have to, the look of the storage room that's supposed to be, as I said, even we have our own collections at home, so we have to make sure that we have to plan a proper way how to, to store our collection. And the light and UV, this is obviously we can see on the faded, fading, this thing happen, the exposure weather. That's why we have to avoid expose our textile object or any collections directly. And of course, we have to, in the museum standard, that we have the maximum intensity of the lux, the light, which is the 50 lux. So lux is the unit for light, and we have to ensure that we are not above exceed the maximum intensity light. And for the pollution, as I mentioned, this is one of the biggest enemy as well, because of the poor housekeeping, the pollutions, and it will chemically change and also transfer the contaminant on the collection. So of course we have to ensure that to do the cleanliness, always do checking on the collection. RH, another issues, as I mentioned, is the agents that will make that we can find the good fungus and also mold on our collection, and of course it will be become brittle and accelerate to the degradations. And of course we have to ensure that we keep safe of the RH within the standard relative humidity from 45 to 55%, but it depends on the types of material. So of course above than that there will tend to be fungus growth, and the fungus is very crucial, because once you have the fungus, sometimes it will penetrate and it's very difficult for you to, definitely sometimes you cannot do any intervention or restoration work on it. And for the incorrect temperature, so the object obviously will be brittle. We then have some collections that breakage, and also and that's why we have to make sure the preventive on how we want to prevent it. We have to make sure that setting of the temperature within plus minus 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. So this is the best way, regardless whether at home or any area or storage in a museum or gallery, in order for you to preserve the standard temperature that you have to set. So this, obviously, when we have this all these factors, and we know what are the what will happen if we didn't preserve it or we didn't sustain. So of course the material will be changed, and obviously the value will be changes. And of course this is very important. This is how the best way on how we are supposed to keeping our collections, in proper safe in the storage box, or the way how you have to keep it, and also to make sure that the object will be long last and also be appreciated to everybody, and also especially for the young generation that can still appreciate our craft product and our collection. I think that's all from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Rajabi, for giving us a glimpse into the worlds of preservation and conservation. I mean, most of us over here, especially working in Kraftangan, we know about the process, the material, but this is at least opening up what is actually preservation and conservation about the product. I actually really like to see that's how we as a common user, not in terms of arts collector or antiques collector, would be able to use like some of the knowledge given here to preserve or maintaining the craft products that we buy. For example, I used to buy work products and nobody tell me how I'm going to maintain that thing. And the common one, oh, you just buy this Johnson and Johnson chef, in which I don't like. I just use like one thing I've got, like actually use a vegetable oil just to make it keep shining. And I think that is the best way. I mean, if in the future that all craft maker would be able to include how you're going to be able to preserve or at least maintain, not in the levels of like a museum, but just like the common people, so that the products will be able to stay, not at least forever, on a longer time. Well, I'm just gonna hold my questions to the end of the sessions. Thank you for that one. So I'm gonna call upon Florence to talk about her crafting of the futures program.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Let me share my screen, if you don't mind. Here we go. So again, thank you very much, everybody, Encik Rizal, sorry, and Kraftangan and fellow panelists. It's a little bit, my topic is going to be very, very different from what we just heard. I must thank my predecessor for her presentation. It was very informative. Thank you very much. I'm afraid mine is not going to be as thorough as yours. I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking to you about a very different topic, which is also related to craft, obviously, but it's about a program that we have conducted over 3 years in Malaysia, together with Institut Negara and their students, to sort of understand what is the Malaysian craft sector about, who are the stakeholders, what are the challenges, what are the gaps, what are the needs, what are the issues, and how can anyone sort of address those issues to bring the craft sector into a stronger position than what it is right now. So this presentation is not an in-depth report. It is just a brief oversight of the 3 years that we've done and some of the findings. So I'm sure that there will be questions around how did we come up to this conclusion, or how did we, but we can answer any of your questions either here on this platform, on this forum, or individually later on. So let me just start here. I just would like to introduce a little bit of what the British Council is, because a lot of people think that the British Council is a teaching center, a language center. So yes, we are that. But the British Council builds connection, understanding and trust between people in the UK and other countries through arts and culture, education and English language. We help young people to gain the skills, confidence and connection that they're looking for to realize their potential and to participate in strong and inclusive communities. We support them to learn English, to get high quality education and to gain internationally recognized qualifications. We work in the arts and culture, our work in the arts and culture stimulates creative expression and exchange and nurture creative enterprise. Crafting Future Malaysia is part of a regional Crafting Future program, which aims to empower women in the craft sector in Southeast Asia and to support their increased social and economic well-being, revitalizing their cultural asset by providing inclusive opportunities through design and creative enterprise development. This program runs in Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines, as well as Malaysia. In Malaysia, we are just about to finish the program. So the first question that we always get is, why is the British Council working in the craft sector? And the reason is very simple. It's because craft is at the intersection of social, economic, and cultural key challenges today. It can have a positive impact and be a tool for solving major intergenerational issues. So here on this diagram, I've just highlighted what we mean by that. If you put craft at the center, you can see that craft sector and their communities are actually having an impact on economic and environmental sustainability, on design and innovation, on well-being, on social cohesion, on heritage and cultural identity, and social and economic inclusion. And I'm sure I've forgotten some of it. But these are the key things, and those are major topics. And craft has a role to play into all of this. So that's why we identify craft as a very important sector, not just for tourism, not just for, of course, it's about, you know, cultural identities of each country, and that's a very, very important role. But very often, those two are the main points that we see out of craft. And we forget about all of this as well. So that's why we wanted to work in the craft sector. So from 2017 to 2021, research conducted by the Glasgow School of Art and the British Council has identified a number of challenges and opportunities in the craft sector in Malaysia. Malaysia is home to a diversity of crafts. Batik, wood carving, metalwork, ceramic, and traditional weaving are the main forms of craft. But we must recognize that not all forms of crafts are equally sustainable, and some craft practices could disappear if we don't support the sector with the relevant intervention and support. We've identified, and I'm going to share with you now, some of the challenges and also opportunities that we have identified throughout the program. Of course, sustainability is a key challenge. And by sustainability, you must understand it's not just economic sustainability, but it's also increasingly becoming an environmental sustainability issue. And that leads to raw materials as well, and the availability and access to raw materials. Obviously, production cost and economy of scale. That's by the very nature of handmade production, slow production. That's a major issue that craft has to carry. And it's not just Malaysia, this is throughout, okay? Obviously, this issue of mass production versus, and mass consumption versus slow production and slow consumption. It's very hard, it's made it very hard for craftsmen to fight the economy of scales that mass production can create. And so it's becoming impossible to fight this, and we have to sort of relook at how we consider crafts versus within the economic context. So like I said, natural resources and raw materials can become an issue and already have become an issue. In terms of distribution, we also see challenges with the intervention of the middlemen and access to consumers. And that has an impact on the sustainability of the artisans. There is also, again, more and more important today, and especially with what's been happening over the last 2 years globally with the pandemic, it's digital literacy and digital access for the artisan communities. And that's a major issue because that refers to infrastructure issues as well. And that's beyond anybody who is in this room's control. It's a structural issue. There is also a challenge with low demand and inadequate offer. There is a lack of business skills and soft skills within the artisan communities. Now, to me, one of the biggest challenge is the lack of appreciation for crafts and artisans. I'll let you think about that one. perhaps a lack of support and investment, which obviously is a result of the lack of appreciation. Low engagement from the youth as a career pathway. I don't think the youth now envisage, or even their parents envisage, craftsmanship as a career path. And it's important to ask ourselves why. And that we can see how artisans have a low self-esteem and morale. And another big challenge that we've seen throughout the 3 years working in the sector is that the sector stakeholders work in silos. So education is not talking to retail is not talking to the artisans are not talking to the consumers, etc., etc. So everybody works in their own fields, and there isn't enough of cross sharing and cross collaborations. Of course, there are some really interesting opportunities that we've also seen. And ironically, sustainability is one of them. It is a challenge, but it is also an opportunity. Because craft and ancient techniques of making are part of traditional ways of living, which are generally protective of our environment. And there is a lot to learn from that. And I believe that artisans can teach us a lot about sustainability. There is a lot to learn also about the impact of craft on well-being, our well-being. You just have to take the last 2 years where, because of COVID, there is a lot of isolation, there is a lot of distress and stress, and too much of screen watching and listening to webinars, and here we are. And craft is a therapy. It's a therapy. It helps us with dealing with our daily stress. It helps children with disability. It helps children or adults with rehabilitation, etc., etc., etc. It has a huge purpose with well-being. And also, I would include in well-being social cohesion as well, whereby it brings communities together. And at a time when everybody is isolated on their screens, in their rooms, in their homes, people feel more and more disconnected from another. And craft is a way to bring people together and be able to share ancestral knowledge and ancestral values from the older to the youngest. And that brings them together. So, of course, heritage, we just had a wonderful presentation about one aspect of heritage, which is preservation. And then a big one, in my opinion, is arts and creative industry. How can we connect crafts, artisans with artists and creative industries in order to rejuvenate, innovate, and create new sustainability, economic sustainability pathways for artisans? And there is a huge, huge, huge opportunity for connections and collaborations. And I will come to that with one of our events that we created with Vhkk, where within 3 days, we managed to create 27 collaboration possibilities and opportunities, just in 3 days of meetings. And of course, the program has also highlighted the fact that IKN, Institut Kraf Negara, could potentially become a craft hub for education and innovation, not just in Malaysia, but also in the region. So why do we face all these challenges? So this is what I call the craft education trap syndrome. If you have a lack of education and adequate support and appreciation for the crafts and the artisans, then you will end up with a lack of innovation and adaptation to new demand and access to that demand, which then in turn will bring a lack of economic sustainability and employment pathways. And that will bring us to a failure to attract the next generation into the vocation. And the cycle just keeps on feeding itself like this. Sorry, I'm attacked by a bee. So why do we focus our program in Malaysia on education? Is because from what you've seen so far in the previous slide, we see that education is potentially one of the biggest pillars to support the development of crafts sectors, both in terms of economic and environmental sustainability. So we see education as the center of the solutions, the sets of solutions to all the problems. Education creates appreciation. Once you educate children about the value of crafts, the origins of crafts, the stories behind crafts, why does this village create this particular design? There is a story behind, there is a narrative, then you start to create understanding of the crafts and appreciation of the story behind the crafts. Also, when you educate, you bring appreciation in terms of the hard hours that go into making that object. And that makes the future consumer understand why they should pay more money to pay for something that is handmade. Why should they appreciate in terms of monetary value as much as in terms of value of the object in itself? And then once you have the appreciation, you start to have the demand, because the consumers see the point of buying something that is handmade and want something that is handmade versus something that has less value, that is mass produced, that everybody else can have, and doesn't mean anything to them anyways. Then once you start to have the demand, obviously, then you'll have the investment. The investment will bring the talent pool generation, because that's when parents and children will say, hey, actually going into craft is actually a very valuable, very noble, very skillful trade, and we can actually survive and make a good living. And that will generate the interest of the youth into the vocation. And then obviously that will bring sustainability. And also once you have the talent pool, you have a better ecosystem for more innovation in the crafts as well. And that can spill over into other technologies, by the way. It's not just craft. Any innovation can have benefits into other disciplines as well. So I think I need to speed up a little bit. So basically, through this program, we worked with IKN and the Glasgow School of Arts. That was our British partner to work on this program. And we delivered 23 activities in the areas of capacity building, networking, and advocacy. And the program objectives were to map and understand the craft sector in Malaysia and identify areas of collaborations with the UK, to support craft education sector in Malaysia through product and design innovation and cross-disciplinary collaborations, and to create advocacy for craft artisan communities and students. So this is what it looked like on a timeline, just so that you understand how this works. There are 3 different roads and colors mapping coding here, and that those 3 colors represent the 3 strands of capacity building, networking, and advocacy. And throughout the 3 years, you can see all the various programs that we've done. It went from visits to the UK for craft curators, to regional forums to talk about various challenges and opportunities in other countries as well outside of Malaysia, or including Malaysia as well. And then we went into, we sent 2 teachers from IKN to the Glasgow School, Winter School, to learn about pedagogy around creativity and innovation of teaching. And then we also, what else did we do? We created master classes, and I am trying to now, I won't go through all of it. If anyone wants more information about what we did, we're more than happy to share more details. But here are some key things that we did, just to show you the scope of the program. We did some English language and communication workshops for the students to be more confident in talking about their crafts and their stories and their skills. We did an exchange of teachers. We sent 2 teachers from IKN to the Winter School in Glasgow, School of Art. We did a design innovation pop-up studio with a pool of students from IKN and 2 teachers from Glasgow School of Art. And that was really to push their boundaries in terms of design innovation and product innovation and ways of thinking. And we did design innovation masterclasses where we featured Malaysian creative practitioners from fashion. We had Fern from Fern Gallery and Sasi from Earth Air, and we had Nick Faiz from Ruma. Oh, sorry, I've forgotten. My apology, Nick. Ruma Gahara, right? Then we did all this conducted us to actually provide and create a roadmap for IKN, because through all this we realized that Malaysian craft students are extremely talented. So it's not a question of talent. The teachers are extremely motivated, but because everybody works in silo, there is an issue with how the knowledge is passed on from. So to illustrate what I'm trying to say, a student of IKN will become a teacher of IKN or a designer at Kraft. But how do you then break the cycle and bring external new knowledge and new ways of thinking? For that, you need to open up yourself to industries, and you need to open up yourselves to other creative sectors, other creative practitioners, who will then bring new ideas, new ways of doing. And it doesn't mean that you forget about the traditional ways or you forget your skills. One does not take away the other. It just adds. And that's how we feel that, you know, a more innovative craft can come about is through a new way of thinking about collaborating with each other. And one way of doing that is for IKN to actually become a creative hub for crafts and for teaching crafts. You already have the infrastructure. IKN is an amazing infrastructure with amazing teachers. And all you need to do is to actually open this up to other creatives to come in and work with your students. It can be people from architecture. It can be people from fashion. It can be people from jewelry. It can be people from design, furniture making, anything. Bring them in. Make them mingle with your students. Make them work, make your students work with these people. Make these people work with you. Exchange. Bring new blood into the space. And this is how you can actually really become very attractive for the new generation of students. So we've done this roadmap. We've passed this roadmap to IKN and to Kraftangan. So it is now in their hands, and it's up to them to see whether they want to take it on further. And one of the things that we did with a lot of very positive outcome was actually the networking session, where for 3 days we invited people from education, from so tertiary education, to look at what the students of IKN, what prospect do they have? How can we mix higher education with IKN? And then the second day was about industry. So we brought in some industry people, especially from the creative industry, to see how they also can connect with IKN students. And the third day was with creative people, artists. And like I said earlier, within 3 days, we had 27 offers to come and participate and do programs with IKN. So again, it is up to IKN to allow for that flow and to allow for that creativity to come into IKN. So through this 23 activities, we actually connected with a very, very large number of people. And this connection map, I'm not going to go through it, but you can see that within 3 years, we connected with so many different people from so many different sectors. People from research, people from business, people from creative sectors, academia, etc., etc., etc. And once you can connect all these people together, I think that's when you start to make real headways. So just to finish, what this program gave us, and hopefully IKN and Kraftangan, was that we have now a better understanding, a deeper and better understanding of the sector of challenges and opportunity, how we need to attract the new generations to join the vocation and learn important ancestral skills, to preserve the traditions through practical training and learn how to innovate. We need to include the craft practitioners into the creative economy and society. We need to change the perception and appreciation of the crafts in Malaysia. We need to embed innovation and interdisciplinary collaboration into craft education. And what we were able to come as outcomes for this project really was to develop this roadmap for IKN, which I'm happy to share with any other education institution, by the way. And also recently, because of COVID, actually this was started even before COVID, because we understand that some of the communities, either rural or marginalized or geographically difficult to access, do not have access to what we have access to here in Malaysia or in urban settings. We developed, our team in Thailand developed a very smart craft, digital craft toolkit. It's for students, but it's also for artisans. With very low tech, you just need your phone and you can't see my phone, there it is. You just need your phone and you can play with this digital toolkit, and it has different modules. And it's got modules on creativity, innovation, business skills, marketing skills, communication skills, finance, budgeting skills, etc., etc., etc. You've got many different modules. Everything is reachable through your phone, and you can learn how to manage your little mini enterprise as an artisan with this digital toolkit. And we've been translating it into Bahasa, and we have given 3 grants to 3 community leaders in Sarawak to share this digital toolkit with 3 communities in Sarawak. And we also have, IKN has seen the value in this digital craft toolkit, and they have decided to take on this toolkit as a module and embedded in their curriculum for the young entrepreneur module. And we're very grateful for that, because I think that it's a very smart new way of sharing knowledge with young artisans and remote communities. So I think for us going forward, the recommendations that we would have from this program is, number 1, educate. Number 2, collaborate. Number 3, innovate. And that's it for me. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Florence. I think you might want to the presentation.
I'm trying to sharing. Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. What a wonderful explanation. I like the part that especially that craft is actually part in the center of middle of everything else. Because we right now always see like part as a secluded areas of business or academics, instead of being part in the center of like academic, heritage, social. And if you bring this craft as a center, it will change. It needs to be elevated to our lifestyles, so that people can see it as the main or the main thing, instead of just a partial parts of life. Something. But also like the fact that about the mass production, this is really quite an issue, because most craft entrepreneurs have to compete with mass production, when in fact I don't think this is actually in their field, their right field for them to compete with this mass production big company, right? But
it's a much bigger issue. It's a global human race problem.
Issue. Yeah,
it's a consumption. It's a consumption issue. The production is a result of our desire to consume, and I mean it's a chicken and egg situation. Once you have the demand, you will have companies that will see opportunities to make money out of creating, producing. So they mass produce. They make it cheaper so that everybody can consume more, and it's a cycle. And we need to break the cycle, because it is driving. This is my personal opinion, but I think that it's driving the human race to its own
destruction.
We're distracted.
In terms of using our resources.
And it's also driving us nuts.
Yes.
Because we are bombarded with fake needs. You know, we don't need, and one of the things that I've realized with COVID is that we actually don't need so much. I have not bought any clothes in the last 2 years. Sorry to share that personal detail, but, and do I need more clothes? No. So I think that there are some lessons that we need to learn from COVID, and there are lessons and there are solutions that we can learn from craftsmen.
I think during the COVID, the most important thing that we realized, I mean, it comes to our mind that actually human interaction and relationship is more important, and we miss that one.
Right.
Yeah. So as I agree with what you said, that we don't actually need a whole lot of things. We can go and live just comfortably as we can, but through marketing and everything, they just keep selling to us things that you don't need, but making it, you know, for example, like iPhone, it used to be like 2 or 3 years, not every year, every single product. I mean, almost every product in the world like keep coming up with new products every year, when in fact for the last 2 or 3 years product is actually just fine to use that product. But anyway, we're running out of time. I'm just gonna go to the last panel today for Dr. Zalifa. Thank you for being patient and waiting for us. So I'm gonna give this floor to Dr. Zalifa.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it has a nice sequence whereby Dr. Rajabi was mentioning about the importance of prevention and conservation, and Florence have mentioned about the needs of creative industries to be involved. Is a kind of approach of sustainability. And on my part, I'm going to share with you how do we actually do it with the community, how we sustain the cultural heritage, but it will relate towards the indigenous people. It can be done, it's not a problem, and actually it's a kind of a showcase of what we are doing with the indigenous community. So I'm going to share you my slides. Okay, I'm going to talk about the enhancements of the Indigenous Orang Asli cultural arts and craft for the global recognition. And we are going to share you how IIUM Jungle School Initiative with collaboration with Jungle School Gombak Malaysia, the kind of experiences that we have done with the community, with the Orang Asli community in Malaysia. So taking note of this beautiful Orang Asli community, you see how beautiful they are and how creative they are in taking note of their arts and crafts. So you can actually see how they use the natural materials and they weave the natural materials in such that become accessories to the costume. So you can see the different tribes with the different styling. Taking note of that, I would like to highlight whereabout is the Orang Asli, and there are about 18 ethnics for the Orang Asli in the Peninsular Malaysia. So you can see all they are living within the jungles in the different states of Malaysia. You can see here in Kedah we have Kensui, in Perak, and then Selangor we have Temuan and Mahmeri, Negeri Sembilan we have Semelai and Temuan. So you can see the distribution of the different tribes of Orang Asli in Malaysia. So this is about us. What we are doing now is actually we are actually a leadership experiential empowerment program. We create that which uses the nature as the venue, and we are interacting very closely with the Orang Asli communities. So myself in IIUM and Major Kalam, he is from Semelai tribe. We discuss with the community, the Orang Asli community, especially the elderly. They are among the master craftsmen, weavers, and they are also the jungle experts. So they have highlighted their concerns about the dying heritage, the cultural dying heritage, whereby how to get the youngsters to be involved and be immersed in preserving and conserving their cultural heritage. So what we do is like we help to empower the indigenous people, and we started off the focusing in Gombak because we have about 10 tribes of Orang Asli community out of 18 tribes. So I think Gombak have a very, we call it an international hub for the different tribes to come together. And what we do back in 2011, we discussed with the Orang Asli community, and we come up with a master planning how to go about in sustaining, and we take note on the UNESCO Sustainable Development Goals and the 5P approaches. So what we do, we create a kind of a phases. Phase 1 is the education and awareness. Phase 2 is the physical development and facilities, and phase 3 is the implementation and supporting events. So if you see here, Jungle School is actually running the whole thing, phase 1, 2, and 3. So actually, when we talk about preserving the cultural heritage, we have to like create waste in order to create a cycle. And I agree with Florence. She was mentioning how this can support and making it's not just about consumerism, it's about how we sustain the cultural heritage to be relevant. And these are the kind of important things whereby any tribes or any citizens, they want to be acknowledged as having an identity of their culture. Taking note on that, so what we did, we create a partnership, a collaboration between the university as well as NGO. We have corporate coming in to help, and we form the training teams, the volunteers, and we do get the Orang Asli themselves to be the talents. They are the one who also facilitating and teaching the public. So we get the expertise among the Orang Asli, and they do the sharing of their rich cultural heritage, whereby they have their traditional environmental knowledge, which they seldom share with the public, but now we have managed to encourage them to do the sharing because we want to create a kind of sustaining support system. So now people are learning about jungle survival, how to actually do weaving, how to create more arts and craft, and we get the tourism Ministry of Tourism to be involved as well, so that we can infuse the kind of innovation. So it's a way forward in sustaining the cultural heritage. So this is our story. We come up with the formation of ideas. We've discussed with the Orang Asli community, and then 2014 we formed the Jungle School Gombak, and then 2018 what we do, we were being approached by Tourism Selangor, and we come up with a way of giving a branding to reintroduce the arts and craft or the important products among the Orang Asli. So what we did, we introduced the giant kerchang puzzle. It was been documented in the Malaysia Book of Records as the giant kerchang puzzle. So then in 2018, we formed a collaboration. So I as the flagship leader, so IIUM Jungle School Initiative is helping the Orang Asli community. Now we are focusing on more collaboration with industries and schools, universities, government sectors, and also corporates. So these are the ways of moving forward. And how do we get the cultural heritage to be acknowledged is actually to move forward with a kind of introducing, rebranding, and making people to understand why is it so important for us to have the arts and craft and maintaining the cultural identity. So these are the important facts that we have discovered. We have discovered that Orang Asli, they are two best weavers in Gombak, and they have been recognized as the best weaver in Southeast Asia back in 2004. And we also discovered that even the DNA of the Orang Asli, Batik, which is mostly in Kelantan and Pahang, their DNA is the oldest living DNA in the world at the moment is 60,000. So we have discovered these important facts from USM. Okay. Okay, here the dying of Orang Asli cultural heritage. What we do is like we work with Jabatan Warisan Malaysia in order to acknowledge on the kerchang, and these are the ways for us to actually create a Malaysia Book of Records. So when we are doing the documentation, it's very important for us to like come up with the storytelling behind the kerchang. This is a puzzle whereby the Orang Asli, when they are selecting their future son-in-law, they have many ways in order to advise the young couples in how the difficulties of the marriage life. So they have their sets of knowledge which are existing in the indigenous, the cultural heritage. So when we see here, let me double check. I'm trying to get the slides. Okay. What we do, we start to showcase. IIUM have done like so get people to understand more the public to understand more about the orang asli, and we work together with Jabatan Warisan to document the importance of like at this if you can see from the photo, it's actually I was talking about the Kerchang puzzle, and then alhamdulillah we are being acknowledged. We have involved with an international competition. We have been given an international award, and we also have won the under the GPM Sustainable Award as the Project of the Year in 2020. So this is the competition in Canada. It is on innovation. So what I'm going to show you, I will show you the video of our finalist video.
Really understand it until you actually see it coming at you in a wall of flame.
China's most polluted, in fact, by
The worst plague of locusts in decades.
massive forest fires in the Siberian
A 6.4 earthquake hit, multiple aftershocks rocking the island just a day after the
We are in the midst of the sixth mass extinction, with up to 200 species going extinct every single day. We already have all the facts and solutions. We have to do is to wake up and change.
Saya Major Kalam BPA, PDM, Bersara. Sekarang saya berada di fasiliti Universiti Malaya Research Center.
Saya Assistant Professor Dr. Norzalifa dalam Department of Artisans and Design in Field of Architecture and Environment Design UIE. It's not Aborigines, so when we say Indigenous, okay, untuk Peninsula Malaysia, we call them.
We helping them since 2011. So we spoke to a few of our company. When we talk to them and they explain and they express their concerns on the youth, the concerns of the dying heritage of their culture. Professor Charles Hopkins and Catherine Cole, they say that this should be replicated to other parts of the world. He was mentioning that because they have been doing a lot of research on indigenous as well, 40 countries. So he said Gombak is the only one and only village that have 10 tribes living together harmoniously. What we do is like Jungle School Gombak Malaysia, we are showcasing their talent and they become the facilitator who are going to interact with the public and teaching the public. Now we are grooming the family unit, because to us family unit, kalau if you groom tu, they're more sustainable. Now they are more responsive in such that they get excited and motivated. Dia rasa proud to say that they are orang asli sebab dia tengok orang interested with the culture. Jungle School Gombak Malaysia is the platform. So when we start to showcase and rebranding, maksudnya this is the gems of the orang asli. Even Batik people, they are the oldest living DNA in the whole world. So 60,000 dia punya living DNA. So yang tu Prof Zafarina from USM, dia dah share to us this year.
We show the people how to start fire.
So the weaving took place, the cooking in the bamboo took place. We even have bamboo tea, learn how to survive in the jungle. The indigenous knowledge is actually the living sustainable knowledge.
whatever the orang asli is doing, there's no plastic. Everything is sustainable. Everything is biodegradable. You have to be in the jungle, and the jungle needs orang asli.
We can actually replenish back our jungle. So we have to empower the orang asli back to take care of the jungles. Okay, I think the next short video is a short video that we have done with TV3, showing how the arts and craft are being innovated, having the university students to learn from the orang asli weavers, and these are the outcome of their works. Kita tengok tu, dia ada seni yang amat unggul tapi tidak diketahui oleh masyarakat umum. Nama saya Assistant Professor Dr. Norzalifa Zainal Abidin. Saya adalah founder, pengasas kepada Jungle School Gombak Malaysia, di mana kami membantu masyarakat orang asli. Aktiviti yang kami laksanakan yang pada tahun lepas yang agak besar adalah Malaysia Book of Record, di mana kami membantu Encik Rahman Bakrin, dia daripada Suku Semai, untuk membuat kecang gergasi lah yang bersaiz 32 kaki. Di mana sambil tu kami berjaya mewartakan kecang sebagai salah satu warisan negara. Kalau mengikut bulanan atau mengikut tempatan adalah aktiviti jungle trekking dalam hutan. Cabaran yang kami hadapi adalah untuk mendapatkan semua level of masyarakat untuk bersama-sama membantu orang asli, dan juga di kalangan orang asli untuk sama-sama bersatu hati. Anak-anak muda mereka dah kurang membentuk identiti dan menjaga warisan. So ni hasrat daripada kaum-kaum ibu dan juga kaum-kaum orang tua di kalangan masyarakat orang asli. Harapan saya adalah kami Jungle School Gombak Malaysia akan dikenali di peringkat Malaysia Kebangsaan dan juga di peringkat dunia. Sebab sekarang ni kami bekerja dengan UNESCO untuk membantu mempertengahkan dan mewartakan hasil budaya mereka, hasil kesenian mereka di peringkat antarabangsa. Okay, I think the efforts has been acknowledged by our counterparts through IIUM under the UNESCO Education of Sustainable Development, Alhamdulillah. And this is how we get the corporates to also contribute as part of the CSR, and we showcase the exhibition to the public, and the orang asli themselves came to support the event. I think they are very, very happy to see how the youngsters are learning from the orang asli weavers, the artisans. These are the kind of activities that we do from time to time, getting people to appreciate jungle, because as what Florence was mentioning, we have to take care of the natural material as well, and this is how we get people to understand the biodiversity of jungles and how the orang asli is living within the jungles. This is how we get the support from our Crown Prince of Selangor States, and he is very enthusiastic, and we actually demonstrate how to play with the giant kerchang puzzle. This is how we document. I think documentation is very important to sustain and get people to understand more about the cultural heritage and the arts and craft. And why do we need to innovate? I feel that this is a very important part. We have to sustain the existing and dying cultural heritage. Ours is focusing on the indigenous orang asli because of the relevance to the current needs. We have to expand the design composition towards the current market needs and locally and internationally. And we have to obtain recognition to the global needs. And we feel that by doing so, we can actually sustain the heritage and livelihood of the orang asli and also the orang asli arts and craft. So we can improve the socio-economic, we can improve the livelihood of the orang asli community, and we can expand the design abilities of the orang asli. These are the important part. When we talk about sustainability, we have to talk about the return of investment, and the social impacts is very important, where by doing so, we can support in terms of employment and staffing, the training and education. We can develop the local competence and develop the community support protection for the indigenous people, and this will definitely help them to improve their current livelihood. We also talk about environmental impacts. This is very important, as what my panelist was mentioning. Why do we need to come with a kind of relating to the current needs, like digital communication is very important. How do we upgrade the consumption by recycling and upcycling and reuse? So we introduce that using the same technique, the weaving technique, or the basic skills of the orang asli. There are many ways, wonderful, beautiful things that can be done. We are also teaching the public as well as the orang asli community how to handle the waste in order to recycle and upcycle, and this can actually reduce the kind of challenges which are affecting the surrounding, the environment, or also the jungles. The economic impacts is very important. So we have to look at this in a proper manner, and these are the kind of how we sustain towards the relevance of the current needs, and the future generation of the youngsters are very interested with this. Okay, this is the kind of weaving pattern that orang asli have. They have their patterns of beautiful kolarai. Different tribes will weave different patterns. We have unique products like cincin belah hutan. I'm pretty sure the Malay community will understand, but actually the orang asli have created the cincin belah rotan, and then these are the sets of kecam puzzle, whereby this is how they are selecting their future son-in-law. This is how what we are teaching the students as well as the public on how to come up with a good innovation with the basic techniques of orang asli weaving techniques, skills. So they are innovating and they are creating more innovation and ideas. So you can see the beautiful arts and craft is varies from one tribe to one tribe, but you can see this is the way of living, and this can be enhanced as a part of a limited edition. So the kind of rebranding that we need to highlight to the public and to the other communities. This is the gobek api, is a fire starter. So I think the orang asli Semelai, they are very good. It is a way of a green sustainable approach. They can actually fire start, they can start the fire using water. So these are the kind of a green technology that they can actually introduce. You can see the beautiful ways of them using the natural material. And these are the kind of activities that we do in support and giving motivation, as well as empowering the orang asli to share their skills. So
I'm sorry, because we are running at the end of time.
Okay,
I'm just going to give you around 1 minute, and then we're going to wrap up this sessions.
Okay, I'm
all
finishing.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay, thank you.
Okay, so when you see here, this is our ways of preserving the cultural knowledge, and this is the concept of sustainability. It has to be overlapped in order to create sustainability in our preservation and conservation or innovation of our cultural arts and craft. And this is us. So this is the Orang Asli experts. I'm going to introduce some of the things, and these are the credits. And we have many collaborators in helping us, and we are enhancing that as the future collaboration with continuous support. And this is us. I think Alhamdulillah this year we have won another international award, which is the Gold Award in the IIUM 2021. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Norzalifa, for that wonderful presentations about the programs and activity with the indigenous people. As Florence said previously, this is Kraft is actually a therapy, and I do remember like a couple of years ago, I've got that one puzzle, and it takes me 3 days to solve that puzzle on my couch trying to do that. And I said, if the indigenous people can do this, I can do this. It's not the kind of puzzle like a modern in like Rubik's Cube. It's really like testing your mind, you know, because using from natural materials. But anyway, I'm just gonna end this session, but I'm just gonna ask a quick one questions to each of the panel. First, I'm gonna start with Dr. Rajabi. Hold on for a second.
Sorry, can we? I think Florence is running out of time.
All right, okay, it's okay then. No, it's okay then. I mean, we're just gonna.
No, it's okay. I have another 9 minutes. Sorry.
All right. So just
I'm going to respond more than.
Okay, just make it as simple, short answers and precise answers. So for Dr. Rajabi, and you know that preservation is all about museums and antiques and the expertise. How do you think that we as a layman, as a normal people, can take that knowledge and do it in our life, you know, on a small scale?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think whatever that I have shared just now can be also utilized by the layman people, because maybe in professional, basically we have to follow the standards that have been set, but somehow, you know, it's very general. I think whatever that, because we do have that knowledge, but maybe the most important that we have to have a very frequent monitoring, and also to, you know, ensure that the objects or our collection in the safe hand, in proper way. We know that we have this basic, as I mentioned, we can use whatever that we have to preserve the collections. They use the natural sources as well as part of the pesticide to avoid our collection. And I think our collection from damage. So is there, we can apply it as long as you know what are the important material to be used, and you know the right technique in order for you to restore or to preserve the collections. So that will be, I think, important thing that they have to know.
Great, thank you. All right, for Florence, I'm gonna ask this one question. You know, but by only going into the craft, and then only you can see the craft, the creative fields, the art and the craft. But how are we going to attract the younger generation nowadays who has no connections to craft until they get into the field? So how are we going to get the younger generations of Malaysia to be interested in craft? Like 1 minute or 2 minute answers.
Okay, well, I'm not an expert, but it's a very complex question, and I think it's very difficult to just give you a one sentence answer to this, because to bring the new generation into craft, in my opinion, you need to make them see that there is a pathway to a career that can sustain their livelihoods. That's a very important point. I would also say that I think one of the ways to attract the new generation is to talk about the role of craft in environmental sustainability. because once they see sustainable environmental challenges are going to be the next generation, it is our biggest challenge. It's not just for the future generation, it's already here, it's already happening. In fact, it happened a long time ago, but now we are starting to see, beginning just to see the impact and what's going to happen. But it is the biggest challenge for the youth today. And I really do think that Kraft has a role to play in teaching us how to be more environmentally sustainable. And I think that's one key area that the youth could be interested in.
Thank you. All right, thank you. To Dr. Norzalifa. So all the activities at the current stage, in years to come, is there transformation or initiative that done could make the Orang Asli, are we going to put the indigenous people stay as what they have, or at the same time, at the same level with what is going on with the trends, for example, like digital era, or because we see all the skills and all these being with the older generations. What about the younger generations of the indigenous people too, and also about communities that are not related to the, what about the survival?
I think what Jungle School is doing now is that when we encourage the elderly to do the sharing to the public, then the younger generation starts to be interested, because they see that as a way of improving their social economic, their lifestyle, and they are the ones who are actually supporting their elderly. So we are enhancing and empowering and giving upskill knowledge to them, introducing the digital world. Like I think recently what we did was we kind of create a coloring book of Kalarai rivers and introduce that, and their younger generation are more interested with that, having a multimedia animation. It's a kind of a cartoon book, a storytelling of introducing their, so it is embedded and they are very keen on it. And even the public community, I mean, people who are outside the Orang Asli community, they are interested as well, because this is their way of having a good wellness. Like for example, I give you like having weaving. Weaving is a way of a therapy to get people to relax, and I think the elderly is teaching their youngsters now. When we are doing the activities of weaving, I think even the public, we have families coming in with their children to do the weaving in the jungle at the river. So I think the kind of creating a balance of the traditional with the uptrending skills, that should be good. And of course, we have to enhance in such that they can actually welcome the modern ways of learning. But the elderly is very, they are quite happy, because now their youngsters are showing interest. Because while they are doing the weaving, they are also digitizing the ways and the techniques using cartoon coloring books. So I think there are many ways to do it. I think we should collaborate. I think IKN, I think British Council and IIUM should be like having a full force of getting the, and I think we have been approached by the Aborigines in Australia, as well as the Africa people, the Minister of Africa, to also set up jungle schools. So I think these are the ways of supporting and enhancing and empowering the indigenous people themselves to actually contribute towards our country. They can actually contribute, because they are the one who are actually sustaining. And I think their younger generation are interested in that, because they feel that they want a good environment. Taking note of the natural materials is very important. So the kind of it's a ripple effect. So I think it's not a problem. We can work together and collaborate and like create more ripple effects in order to help everybody to enhance the arts and craft. And I think arts and craft have a way like the storytelling of how people is a kind of therapy while we are doing it in a relaxed manner. I think the therapy enhance the kind of improving the livelihood of the whole community, not just the indigenous people, but us as a whole community. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I'm
Dr.
very
Norzalifa.
sorry, but I have to leave now.
We are ending. We are ending now. Don't worry,
Yeah.
Florence. Okay,
Okay.
so we are coming at the end. So on behalf of the IKN, I would like to say thank you to the three panelists, Dr. Rajabi, Dr. Norzalifa, and Florence for taking your time and sharing your experience with us and opening our views and minds towards the craft. So if anybody would like to get a hold of our panelists for more information and perhaps for future collaborations, you can contact us and we're just going to get you through with our panelists over here. And with this, I bid farewell and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Thank you and have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
All right.
everyone. Stay safe, everyone.
Stay
You
safe,
too.
everybody. All right.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Noorizal. We come
All
to the
right.
end of our session of Craft Sustainability webinar today. On behalf of National Craft Institute, I would like to say thanks again to all the panelists and our moderator for the informative and interesting talk. Hopefully, this knowledge sharing can be utilized and benefit by us together in ensuring sustainable craft preservation and protection. Thank you very much for your participation.